Yeah, pretty close. Anyway, so I think we're just going to open this up to a regular old Q&A. I want to know what's on your minds, and hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. So come on up to the mic when you're ready. Maybe form a nice orderly line. Don't hurt each other. And ask me that burning question that's been keeping you up at night. Or not. Okay. Don't be shy. Fire away. Hi, YouTube.
This is for a friend who couldn't make it because she's in Florida.
What's her name?
Heather.
Hi, Heather.
She's a huge fan of Orochimaru, so I was wondering if you could answer these questions in Orochimaru's voice.
I will certainly do my best.
Thank you. Questions are fairly simple. I've noticed that you and Crispin Freeman are in a lot of work together.
Yes.
And I've seen videos on his side saying that the two of you have some really, really entertaining banter in the booths. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about it from your perspective, and also if you're coming next year, can you bring Crispin Freeman to Colossalcon next year?
Okay, let's start one question at a time. Firstly, Crispin and I rarely work in the booth together. This is really weird, I've been talking like him. But I'm going to do it, I'm going to try. Crispin and I rarely are in the booth at the same time because they don't trust us together. Actually, most anime, we're in there by ourselves with the director. So we don't have that luxury of feeding off of one another, as it were. However, we are known to leave presents for one another, usually in the form of foul language associated with what's going on the screen. Nothing to do with the anime we're working on. So we're just known for leaving little golden nuggets of disgustingness for one another throughout the world, and discovering them in the most inappropriate ways. And as far as bringing in here, it's not up to me, it's up to you. You have to request us for the convention. They have to invite us. We don't show up unannounced. So it's up to you at this point. I put it in your lap.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really weird. Hi.
Okay, well, I know you're the new star of the popular show Steven Universe, and I'm really happy you guys are naming that. I'm also wondering though, you got to reprise your role for Tom, and they're doing like another like special feature thing again. So how did you feel about like doing that again? Because I know you really like Tom and all that.
Well, just getting back into the Absolutions Tom was amazing for me, and it's because of you guys. Honestly, the Twitter storms that you guys joined me in really got the show back on the air. And to take it this far, where we actually have a new Sarah back, we've got a new Absolution, a new body form for Tom, and we're doing Intruder 2. We just announced this at MomoCon last week, and we are doing an Intruder 2. I can't tell you what happens, you guys have to wait, but it's going to be happening this summer, and there's a trailer online for it if you guys want to check it out.
And I also know one thing, in Spike's People and Tom, they sometimes say like bang, but yeah, is there any reason for that, or is it just they wanted you to say it for Tom because you said it for Spike?
That's the reason they did it. I mean, we're all fans of Cowboy Bebop, and but yeah, I think one of the main reasons I booked the role of Tom in the first place is because of Cowboy Bebop. The guys are fans of the show, and they wanted that voice for Tom, thankfully. So yeah, it was definitely a nod to Cowboy Bebop fans everywhere. So, and we'll continue doing that throughout the show.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, so this is actually a great teacher of Mizuka question.
Yes?
Yeah. All right, so I didn't realize this until watching the show again, but you voiced like half of the roles on the show. What was that like?
That was a show that I had no idea what I was going into when they called me into the studio. It was also a show that we didn't have a proper script for. So generally for anime, well, it caused some interesting problems and had some really interesting consequences. But for most anime shows, we'll get an original Japanese translation, which will be word for word, and then we bring in writers, which I was doing for many years, also for pitching on other shows, but the writers would conform them to an English adaptation so that everything fit in the lip flaps. We didn't have that for Onizuka at all. We just had the Japanese translation. So I was making it up as I went along through the entire show. 99% of it was ad-libbed. So, and thankfully, we had a guide for the story, so we had an idea of what it was supposed to be, but it was a crapshoot. The entire thing was a crapshoot. I had no idea if it was going to make any sense, and I still haven't seen it.
Right.
But apparently it played pretty well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing for that entire show. We were just literally just living an improv show.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for liking it.
All right, this is a Gurren Lagann question.
Yes, hon. I'm quivering in anticipation. Get it wrong.
Well, Leon has such a unique voice. Have you used that voice anywhere else? Because I'm trying to look through all your stuff, and it's kind of hard.
That was my original voice for Wolverine, but they said it just wasn't aggressive enough. I don't understand why. Although I did have the claws. Never mind. No, I've never gotten to do that voice since, before or since. I was surprised that they let me do it in the first place. I actually came for Gurren Lagann. I came in to read for other parts, including Kamina and some of the roles. But I saw the sides for Leron, and I saw the picture of the character, and I said, "Who's that?" They said, "Oh, that's not for you." I said, "No, can I just see it? Can I try out for it?" And they said, "I don't think that'd be a good idea." They knew me. They would always hire me for really tough, very, very masculine kind of roles. And I said, "I really want to read for this." And they said, "Well, what would you do with it?" And the first thing I saw on there was, "You screw it in, give it a hard, manly twist." And they went, "Oh." It was the Japanese client who was in the room at the time. Whoa, so good. Okay. For a callback. So I was surprised that I booked it. I thought that I had just offended everybody in the room. But it was one of the most fun things I ever got to do. And Tony Oliver directed that show. You guys are probably familiar with this, where Tony's brilliant. He's a brilliant director, brilliant actor, singer, he does everything. And my goal became to make Tony squirm as much as possible. He's a very conservative guy and very professional in the booth. And I would just say, as wrong as things turned out in that show, it was much worse in the booth. I recorded duplicate lines for basically everything that ever made it to screen that was 10 times worse. And so Tony, I would just say something and I just see Tony go, oh, I gotta go wash. I need a minute. And he would call for more breaks than I would. So, achievement unlocked. Thank you. Hi.
Howdy. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to say what Wolverine, my favorite Wolverine line's
Thanks,
gotta be.
Blum.
What was it?
I said, thanks, Blum.
My favorite Wolverine line's gotta be Swiss cheese, by far. My question is, if you could pick any one character that you voiced to hang out with for a day, who would it be and why?
Leron. He's awesome. He's awesome. Leron's awesome. And he can fix my car.
Thanks.
Thank you. I hang out with all of them every day. They're all in here. So I don't need to go anywhere. Yeah, I'm so happy by myself. It's just a party going on in my head.
Hey there, Steve.
Wow, you're on the radio. Where are you from?
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, and I wanted to talk specifically about your work in Peace Walker. There were a few scenes in there, because everyone's familiar with David Hayter's voice. It's deep, gravelly, and I felt like you really matched his presence in that game as Zadornov. So I was just wondering what it was like working on that, and sort of what you did to differentiate the character of Zadornov from the Big Boss in terms of voice.
Well, I just did me. That was basically my own voice, if I remember right. Galvez, I think we called him. Yeah. So he had a few names, I think. Yeah, the same guy. But I had worked several times with David in the booth. I worked on several incarnations of the game, and I kind of knew where his voice print was. So I just kind of did my own thing. He actually brings it way down here, and he kind of forces it down a little bit. And I just spoke like I normally speak, and it worked out really well. And we could have almost been brothers because of the timbre of our voices, and I knew that going in. So If sometimes I did get a little bit too close to him, they would play me a little bit of a vocal reference, and I could pitch it one way or the other. It really wasn't boring because we're distinct enough where people can recognize the difference.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a little too high for me. Sorry.
Sure, it happens to me all the time, man. I say that every day. Wait, what? What are we talking about?
Hi, I'm Corey. We met earlier.
We did meet earlier. Hi.
I have a quick question about screaming or yelling lines.
Yes.
In the booth. So that you don't hurt your voice, is there something you could kind of tell me to help with those kinds of lines?
Yes, don't do it. Honestly, that's really the best advice I could give you is screaming. I have to limit now. I won't do sessions more than 2 hours that involve screaming. Just because back in the old days, especially when I was non-union, they could make me scream as long as they wanted to, and people literally lost their voice permanently. And I don't want that. And you can get polyps. There's all sorts of things that you can get from screaming, and a lot of people refuse to do it entirely. I've been blessed. I've been able to do it. I've been able to maintain doing that, and I made a really good living off of being the guy that can scream. But it does take a toll, and when you're screaming, and at least for me, as a very physical actor, I'm using my entire body, so it's not just the throat, but it's the lungs, it's the muscles of the whole upper carriage of the body that can suffer from that. Muscle spasms in the neck and shoulders, you can go like that. So really, the only thing you can do is not do it as much, or you also have to learn how to control your breathing. That will help to some degree, but if you're screaming, you're going to hurt yourself at some point. So the only thing I could recommend, if you have to do that for a job, is make sure that you get lots of sleep the night before, lots of sleep the night after, drink a lot of water, and there's all sorts of vocal remedies that will really help. There's steroids if you have to go that far, but I use these little throat drops called Golden Throat. It's a Chinese herbal, all-natural thing. And I just pop one of those in my mouth, and it eases some of the pain during the session, but releases vocal rest after the fact. So my best advice, if you're sensitive to that at all, just don't do it, because you can really hurt yourself.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Ryan. We met earlier.
So we did.
Okay, first off, I just gotta say, Steven, you're awesome. I mean, I love all that you've done, mainly from Transformers and for Legend of Korra. And I just have a couple of quick questions. One, what was it like working on? What was it like being in the recording studio alongside Frank Welker and Peter Cullen, the original voices of Optimus Prime and Megatron? And two, I'm sure this is probably a burning question. I'm sure a lot of Transformers Prime fans, as well as Transformers fans, have had. At the end of the Transformers Prime Predacons Rising movie, we see Starscream trying to restart the Decepticons on Cybertron, but then Predaking and the Predacons show up and they beat him up, but we never really know what happens to Starscream after that. So did he die? Did he survive? What exactly were you told about the fate of your character?
Starscream is in Cancun right now, getting a pedicure. No, they don't tell us. They want to leave it up to the audience. So, it's pretty much whatever you think happened to him at that point. But, I mean, Starscream has had a lot of bad things happen to him, so I think he's probably fine. They just needed to stop that incarnation of the series, so they thought that would be a good way. And the producers of that show particularly loved torturing Starscream. In fact, every episode where they knew that he was going to get tortured, they would all be laughing before I started the episode. They said, "You're going to get beat up so bad today," and we can't wait. They loved it. They loved when Starscream would scream. They thought that was the funniest thing in the world. So, so I don't know what happened necessarily. And as far as working with Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, I think I was fanboy squeeing like an 8-year-old the entire time inside. I love those guys. They're amazing actors. They're amazing humans. They're incredibly funny. Sometimes in the studio, they would go into this little comedy routine. Those guys have known each other for 40 years, and they would go into some comedy routine doing impressions of old comics, and they would just let them go for like 20 minutes and record everything. And I would love to get a hold of those because it was some of the most amazing improv I've ever seen. But yeah, just being in their presence and hearing Peter Cullen, who is not a huge man. Peter Cullen is a man he's very fit. He's older. He's got that Hollywood pencil mustache. Very neatly dressed every day. And he would walk into the room and, "Hi, how you doing?" And all of a sudden, he'd go up to the microphone and he'd say, "Roll out," and everybody in the room would go, "Oh!" Including Frank. It affected Frank too. And it vibrated the walls, and it's amazing. You're standing next to him, you can feel the vibration from his voice in your bones. It's incredible. And Frank, who I've been a fan of for many, many years. If you guys don't know who Frank Welker is, look him up. He's the voice of every Disney creature in every film you've ever seen. He has more credits in films, I think, than anybody on the planet. And he's my Megatron. He always will be. And one of the nicest guys I've ever known. He's amazing. Yeah, so that was one of my biggest fanboy moments in this whole industry, was working with those guys.
Okay. Thank you. And just one last thing.
All hail Starscream. That's what we like to hear. You still have to call me all hail. Hi.
So I have a really random question for you. Huge Cowboy Bebop fan, obviously, for obvious reasons. But my friends and I are always talking about that live-action film that's going to be coming out sometime. And so we fangirl over different people we want to play. We want to be in the movies, not that we want to play. But we can't figure out who would be Faye Valentine. So who would you put in as Faye? Yeah, it's a really hard one.
I wouldn't even know where to start. That's a great question. I'm going to have to think about that, I think. I don't know.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Who?
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg. For that. I think that would be an excellent choice. Mark Wahlberg. He's got the abs for it. He could, that impossible outfit, he could probably keep that up. Just his core alone. I have no idea. That's great.
I told you it was a random question.
That's a very awesome question. You're going to make me think. Maybe I'll have an answer at tomorrow's panel.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Wahlberg, yes.
I'm a really big fan of Call of Duty Zombies. I love your work as Dempsey.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, how many of your lines were scripted versus roughly how many of them would they just let you do whatever you wanted for?
A shocking amount of Dempsey was scripted. Those guys are sick. They're really twisted minds. They had a lot of fun with it, and once they realized that I was willing to play along and get as disgusting as they were, they wrote for me like bandits. They were writing like crazy in the booth once we started some stuff, and they realized how funny it was going to be. They were actually writing on the fly, and it became a collaborative effort after a while, and I definitely threw in my 2 cents. At the end of every session, during the session, I'd be just writing down ideas, and I would have a whole page full of them at the end. So I don't know which ones of mine stuck, which ones of theirs stuck, but in the end, it was a collaborative sort of thing.
Which line was your favorite, do you think?
I think I have it written down. Let me see. I don't remember the entire thing, so I want to make sure I have it right. Not that it matters to anyone, really. But what should we talk about? Yeah, here we go. This is a good one. Freak bag meat sacks! You got dead flesh on my new boots!
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The ones that I really loved, I can't say in this room. It's all ages. Hi.
I want to say thanks because yesterday you gave me a Ben 10 thing for my brother.
Ben 10?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was-
Can we close that door? It's hard to hear. Is that possible?
You signed it Jack for my brother.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask 2 questions. Firstly, what is the most challenging character you've ever voiced?
Well, physically challenging would probably be Wolverine. Just because he fought so much, and doing anything in this kind of voice is fine until you start fighting. But once I start going, anything like that, or Tank Dempsey, those kinds of characters, it really takes a toll on the throat. And Wolverine is one of those characters where I literally felt like I was being beaten up by the Hulk when I finished. And I had to take a day off afterwards.
And my second question is, could you do your best Amon impression, like any quote?
Well, I've got something for you.
I love that so much. Can't wait.
Ready for this? I'm on fire. I'm on stage. I'm on Takora. I'm on TV. I'm on a roll. I'm on a quest for equality. I'm on thin ice. I'm on a boat. I'm on a bender. That's really bad. I'm on a tight schedule. Favorite desserts? Chocolate almonds. I'm unable to answer that. Can I get an on somebody? I'm opening up a new spiritual center on Air Temple Island, simply called a monastery. Benders hate the first day of the week. Why? Because it's a Monday. Favorite high-stakes game? A Monopoly. Why the mask? Amonimity, of course. I'm experiencing almond joy. Try the almond butter. It's delicious. I think that's enough of that. I'm lactose intolerant. Got any almond milk? Eek, it's a monster. That's all I got. But you want to read the revolution has begun. How's that? You're welcome. You've been purified. That was really stupid. That's how I entertain myself in the car. Hello again.
Hello, Melissa, we met. I had a question with, you kind of did it earlier when you did Orochimaru. Is there anything you do to have different voices? Like, I know a lot of times you have the deep voices, but like, for instance, like Orochimaru or Digimon, is there anything you do to just prepare, or does it just come out naturally?
It comes out when it comes out. Sometimes I don't have any control over it. When I first began voice acting, I was always terrified because I was afraid that if I had to do a high-pitched character, I didn't know what was going to come out before it came out, and I had to try a whole bunch of things. And to go from something like my normal speaking voice up to Guillemon, it would come out like this, and kind of have to pitch it up, and I sounded like a 13-year-old kid going through puberty until I finally landed, on whatever I needed to land on. Now it's a matter of muscle memory because I've been doing it for 25 years. So I know if I'm going to have to do a little teeny tiny character, it's right in there, it's ready to go. And I know exactly what's going to come out before it happens, most of the time. I mean, sometimes there's some surprises. But I really don't have to do any preparation other than the normal vocal warm-ups that I would do on the way to work, which, if you want to hear those are pretty weird. The easiest one is really just what we all did as kids. It's just warms up the whole cavity here. The one that people really sort of freak out at me on the freeway when I'm going to work is I do vowel sounds to warm up my face. It's just big. It's horrible, but it really helps warm up everything. Those sorts of things. Humming also. So Vincent Valentine was really good for that. I'll just speak like Vincent for about half an hour, like a low whisper. And that warms up all of the throat muscles. So we're singing in the car. That kind of helps too.
Also, one other question. Do you have a favorite line as Orochimaru?
Probably. I don't remember anything because I don't have to. I'm old. So I write everything down. Let's see. Well, here's a little piece. I'm beginning to like this village. I think I'll make it mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen, we met yesterday.
Yes, we did. Hi. And only my mom calls me Stephen. And Dave Filoni from Star Wars.
No, that's me.
Oh, I thought you were calling me Stephen.
No, I'm Stephen.
Oh, you're Stephen. Okay, you can be Stephen. I'm so confused. Here, you come and do the panel. I'm done.
I'm not as good as you.
Yes, you are. You're better than me. So you haven't done this for a living. It's stupid. Stupid way
I have
to
a few questions. My first one is, who inspired you to become a voice actor? Was there anyone before you that inspired you?
Well, I didn't know I was going to be a voice actor, honestly. I wasn't studying for that. But I loved Mel Blanc back in the day for Bugs Bunny cartoons and things like that. He was just amazing to be Bopper and was a huge influence for me. And Bob actually helped me get into the business. Voice of Porky Pig now and many, many other things. Frank Welker in later years. But I didn't think that I could ever do this for a living. I first wanted to be an oceanographer, and I thought I might be a doctor, and I worked for a film company. I was a film executive for many years. I did a lot of other things before I landed on voiceover, so I didn't really look to people for influences for that specifically. It's really the only thing I know how to do. So fortunately, I found my niche and I found a way to make a living at it eventually.
So my next question was, when was the hardest time that you laughed when you were in the booth?
Like every day. I work with some of the funniest people on the planet, so we laugh a lot in the booth. Some of the funniest people, Tom Kenny is hilarious. The guy who plays SpongeBob. Oh my God, we were working on a show called Superhero Squad, and Tom played Dr. Doom, Captain America, and MODOK. And sometimes he would just go off script and he'd go for 15, 20 minutes just improvising, and we were dying laughing. He was so funny. He's so amazingly talented. But there's 50 people that can do that. Grey DeLisle is ridiculously funny. Tara Strong is amazingly funny. John DiMaggio, ridiculously funny. There's some really, really funny people in the room. One of the funniest things that I ever saw, I was working with Richard Horvitz on, what was it, Billy and Mandy, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. There was a little piece of that in here on that video. And Richard was describing one of the voice actresses in our community who started out as a stripper just to support herself in LA. And she just signed with an agency, and she was telling the story in the room. I won't tell you who it is, but she was telling the story in the room where she's going down the catwalk with a rose in her mouth, and she's naked, and she comes down the catwalk at the strip bar, and her agent is sitting there, and she comes face to face with her agent. And so as she's telling the story, Richard is on the floor with a pencil in his mouth, imitating this whole thing, pantomiming the whole thing. And he's crawling around on the floor, and the window where all the directors and producers are is just above where they could see him. He disappears, and he's the lead in the show. He's Billy from Billy and Mandy. And the director is looking around, and she goes, "Where's Richard?" And we're all just dying, laughing. We're trying not to spoil the takes that are going on in the room as it was, but it was his turn to be up with the microphone. And he wasn't paying attention, obviously. He was pantomiming this thing. And so the director gets up, and she looks down, and she sees him. She goes, "Richard, get out of the room. You're doing this after class." And she kicked him out of the room. And he had to wait till we were all done, and he had to literally stay after school and finish his lines. But stuff like that goes on all the time. The other funny thing was in Transformers Prime. I was working with Darren Norris, who was playing Knockout. He's one of my dear friends. And it was one of the rare moments where Starscream is having an emotional moment. And Darren had some string cheese, and I didn't see. He turned his head the opposite direction, and he tore up a piece of string cheese in half, and he shoved one piece up each nostril. And he turned towards me as I'm doing my line. He starts waving it in front of my face. And I lost it. I spit up. It was, oh my God, it was so bad. We laugh every day. There's so many stories I can tell you that are just wrong.
One more question.
Okay.
I'm a huge Cowboy Bebop fan. I love Spike, but I love Edward. What was it like being with Edward, like the voice actor, Edward?
Well, that's Melissa Vaughn. She is one of my favorite people on the whole planet, personally and professionally. She's amazing. When we were recording Bebop, like most anime, we're not working with the other actors in the room. I didn't meet her till probably 5 or 6 episodes in, and I knew her because I knew the rest of her family, Tom Vaughn and Jonathan Vaughn. The Vaughn family are great. They're all great actors and singers and things. But I didn't meet her until several episodes in. And I really haven't gotten to know her until after the show was done. We started doing conventions together. And now she's one of my dear friends. I love her, and I'm always amazed by everything that she can do. But we get along so well that I don't know if you guys, does anybody have the Blu-ray of Bebop that was just recently released? Have you seen the behind-the-scenes things where we did the dinner and behind-the-scenes interviews? Oh, nobody's seen that. That's great. Open up your box and look for the behind-the-scenes stuff, because we all did individual interviews as a Bebop cast, but we all wanted to be together again since we never got to work together. So we organized a dinner at the director's house, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who also played Julie on the show. And we all got together, we had a dinner, and we just talked about Bebop and ate and drank, and we got progressively a little more drunk throughout the meal. And the conversation was really funny and really endearing, and we all talked about how much we love the show and how much it's meant to us and how much it's meant to you guys, the stories we've heard from you guys. So, if you really want to get a sense of what our little Bebop family is like, watch that, and you'll really see how we interact.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Aquabat!
Oh my God! Sorry. Hi, my name is Adam. I was actually at the Q&A yesterday too. A lot of people were asking, like, how do you get these cards? How do you get these characters? Could you kind of like explain how how people like choose like who they're going to select for each character and how the audition process works?
Well, nowadays it's a little bit different than it used to be. It used to be we would all go into the studio at the same time. We'd all read for the parts at the same time. Now, most people have their own studios. So they'll send me sides at home. My agent will send me an email with 5 or 6 different parts, and I'll just read for them in my home studio and send her an MP3. And then if we get callbacks, sometimes we'll go and read for the director or whatever. But back in the old days, literally there would be 20, 30 people in a booth or in a room waiting to go in one at a time. And we'd read for the director and producer, and a couple weeks later we'd hear who they chose. And sometimes it's a subjective thing. We never know what their criteria is, and we just try to go in and do the best that we can for that character. And I never try to force anything. I just do whatever comes organically for me, and it's worked really well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.